Wow. This comment was a read, child. So basically, what she's saying is, women are very delusional. And a lot of them find that out when it comes to sex work, right? Sex work is a vast of things, right? It could be, feed pigs, doming, stripping, anything where you get paid for the male gaze is sex work, right? And so women often think that just because they're women, when they go into that industry, that they're just going to make it, right? And a lot of that is because most men are average, and most men are not going to reject women. Most men don't have the luxury to pick, choose, and refuse women. So in their minds, we're all the same. So you can have the bad-built, funny-faced girl thinking that she's the same as the pretty, slim, tall, desirable woman, because men are still attempting to gain access to her for whatever reason, right? And when you go into sex work, that's a whole different animal, right? And this comment was left under the video where I was talking about men and women are delusional, right? They both want to feed into the fantasy. Men's fantasy is all women are going to view them as heroes, as saviors, and women's fantasy is to be saved, right? And the reality is that's not reality, right? The higher you ascend, the more you realize that all things must be worked for. You don't just get things because you're a woman, right? And the more a man accomplishes, the more solid he becomes, the stronger his foundation is, the more he can pick, choose, and refuse women. And oftentimes, the picking and the choosing are from a certain caliber of women, a certain pool of women, which is not the same pool of women that most average men choose from. Conversations like this really bother women, right? Because most women are average, and most women are going to couple off with average men who, if they could do better, they would. That's the reality of things, right? And so it would behoove women to not rely on the male gaze for their self-esteem, because as soon as a man can do better, he does better. As soon as a man can trade up, he will. The only reason why most men don't is because they cannot afford to, right? And so I was talking about this, I believe, on Instagram when I was posting thirst traps. Men had in their minds that because they had actual proximity to me in real life, that somehow I was signaling to them. Now I'm talking about men with a salary cap, men who have to wait for payday, men whose women are mid and below average, right? And there were women who tried to make a mockery of me. Women who, you know how women do, right? They try to get with men to make a mockery of women, right? But you're doing that with men who would choose me over you if they could afford to choose me over you, right? Now, these are the reality of things. We like to believe that all women are the same and we're all beautiful. That is not true. And when you start dealing in things like sex work, where you are actually chosen by your looks and aesthetics, that's where the reality sets in. And I see and I respect why sex workers be shitting on bitches, because y'all don't really understand. Most women don't really understand what that comes with. Women, they will, want to take pole classes and, want to know how to dom men and how to sell feet pics. They want the results. They don't want all that comes with it. You are literally putting yourself in positions to be objectified and rejected if you are not good enough. Most women cannot handle that. This is why looks and aesthetics and beauty is the most important things to women. Most women are liars when they say it isn't. It is. Some of them just have come to the realization that they don't have what it takes to compete in that area. And we're always competing. The only thing is, most women are around average and below average men who don't have the luxury to pick, choose, and refuse. So they will go wherever there's availability. And most women are open to those men because that's what's in your proximity. Right? And so, again, as I said in my video that this comment was left under, you have to be grounded in reality. Right? And so, women will, in their mind, think that me and them are the same simply because of proximity, or because men may desire them and they think they're the same as me because men desire me, when it's two totally different ball games, right? And it's a different ball games for obvious reasons, right? But I'm not in the competition with most women. I'm doing better than most of the men that they want attention from, that they want validation from, right? So I'm not even in the game that they're in. But if I was, I would win because I know how to, right? And women also believe that there is competition amongst us because of how I present myself, because women usually present themselves in certain ways for certain reasons. So they dress up to go out to be admired. So I do this daily, so they think that that's what I'm doing. For, again, salary-capped, middle-aged men who have to wait for payday, who can't afford to do for me what I do for myself, who cannot afford to do what I do for myself for their wives. They cannot afford to put their children's mother in an X5 or a G-Wagon. Are they really discontinued? They really discontinued the G-Wagon? Or a Porsche Cayenne. Those men cannot afford to do that. When I came on the scene, when people started to see me, I came on the scene with a Range Rover my ex-husband bought me. I had an option, the Range Rover or the G-Wagon. That's the type of time I was on. So, again, I understand how this goes, but women don't. And they're comfortable in how men deal with them because they're around average men, and most average men are not going to reject women. Most men are going to love all women because they don't have the luxury to pick and choose the cream of the crop. They're not around those women. When I was growing up, my father used to tell me, you got to work for your own. Don't live off of a man. You don't owe anybody shit. Nobody's going to give you shit. I don't care how pretty you are. These are the things that were planted in my head, right? I was never told I was too pretty to do things, like this entitled attitude that a lot of women have. And again, men feed into that because most men are desperate and they cannot pick, choose, and refuse. For a lot of men, if it wasn't for the workplace, they wouldn't be around women. They wouldn't have access to women. That's why most of them couple off in the workplace, because those are the women they have access to. And you put somebody like me, which is rare, in certain environments, men think that, and then they get to go on Instagram and, both men and women are delusional. And I'm not competing in any of it because I'm trying to beat all of y'all, right? So this comment was so true. It applies to life, not just sex work. Women are very delusional about how life is. And that's because their ego and self-worth is tied up in how men respond to them. And men respond to all of us in the same way. But the higher caliber men you get, the more you will see that we're not all the same.